While there was still a lot to love about certain elements the long-awaited sequel trilogy had to offer, there were still a whole host of things fans were hoping to see that never came to fruition, as seen in this lovely Reddit thread acting as inspiration for this particular Star Wars list. So with that in mind, I am Gareth from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 things we actually wanted from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Number 10, a properly utilized Luke Skywalker. It's safe to say that both Harrison Ford and the late Carrie Fisher's Star Wars comebacks, as Han Solo and Leia Organa respectively, were generally handled rather well in the end, with the former helping guide the likes of Rey and Finn before being dramatically cut down by his son, and the latter acting as the fearless leader of the Resistance with a twinkle in her eye. On the back of barely even being present throughout Episode 7 though, most were left a little underwhelmed by how Mark Hamill's one-time main hero of the series was fumbled across the trilogy, having Luke return as a Jedi Master broken by the fateful part he's played in shaping this present-day galaxy was definitely a compelling choice, it must be said. But the call to have Luke then proceed to suddenly shift to being the sort of composed and wholesome Skywalker many fans had been expecting heading into the trilogy during his Force Spirit appearance in Rise of Skywalker felt painfully forced and inconsistent with what came before it. Folks were gleefully awaiting the sight of Hamill back in his Jedi robes as much as they were the visuals of Han holding his blaster and Leia slapping arrogant space cowboys. Yet Skywalker's rather rushed and muddled sequel's arc, one that only saw him act as a real major player in one episode, felt like a huge waste of such a legendary character. Number 9, the rebuilding of the Jedi Order. With it recently being announced that Daisy Ridley's Rey will be making her return to the galaxy far, far away in an upcoming feature set after the Rise of Skywalker, it seems fans are finally set to see something they were largely hoping to witness in episodes 7 to 9, that being the rebuilding of the Jedi Order. Watching Luke Skywalker attempt to guide a new generation of Jedi in this universe forever changed in the wake of the Empire's fall, all whilst a new evil in the galaxy is rising in the shadows, could have definitely given that legacy presence a more meaningful part to play from The Force Awakens onwards. And while fans were at least given a glimpse at Skywalker's Jedi Academy, or rather the fiery remains of it, having that all-important chapter in the son of Anakin's life only play out on screen in a few throwaway flashback sequences was undeniably underwhelming. At least Ridley's next Star Wars showing will finally deliver the big screen Order rebuilding goods though, with Charmin Obey-Chinoy's flick set to explore a time 15 years on from the fall of the First Order, as Rey uses the sacred text and her time with Luke to kick off a new age of the Jedi. What could go wrong, eh? Number 8, more focus on a defecting stormtrooper tale. The tale of a stormtrooper sensing he was perhaps fighting for the wrong side before defecting to join the heroes in their quest to overthrow his one-time allies felt like one hell of a fresh story to tell coming into The Force Awakens. John Boyega absolutely smashed it as the charming reformed First Order trooper throughout Episode 7 too, trying to figure out his place in the galaxy whilst avoiding being blown to bits by his former pals. So it's just a shame that in the wake of finally finding his courage and briefly going toe-to-toe with Kylo Ren with a lightsaber in hand, Finn was largely treated like a bit of an afterthought in his subsequent 2 showings. Rather than diving deeper into his background and the effects his time as a First Order soldier had on him as a person in the aftermath of Episode 7, Boyega's central figure just ended up fading into the background on the back of forgettable side quests and a lack of real character development at all. What a damn waste. Number 7, allowing the new central trio's chemistry more moments to shine. Despite definitely being presented as the sequel flick's answer to Luke, Han, and Leia, the likes of Finn, Poe Dameron, and Rey weren't really given that many opportunities to share the screen as a trio in the time before The Rise of Skywalker, despite fans clearly wanting to see the charismatic leading heroes exchange quips and a few thrilling adventures as a unit, and the few flickers of the group hilariously squabbling over Millennium Falcon and BB-8 damage, and spending some long-awaited quality time together on a few missions in Rise, only served as a reminder of what could have been in those prior entries. Instead, the new collection of heroes spent the majority of their appearances in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi apart, something that resulted in their various emotional reunions just not quite landing in the way they could have had someone bother to keep the 3 together for longer than a minute in the time leading up to Episode 9. Number 6, a Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie reunion. Speaking of Star Wars trios, despite all being present at various points in The Force Awakens, the baffling call was made to completely ignore what could have been the most satisfying reunion in modern movie history. Han Solo very much picked back up where he left off with his beloved Leia Organa at least, with the ever-loyal Chewbacca also being present during the smugglers' attempts to help Rey, Finn, and the Resistance. Yet Luke's infuriatingly short cameo coming so late on ensured that fans didn't get the chance to see the lovable trio and their furry mate share one last scene together before Solo's fatal meeting with Kylo Ren. No one was begging for the likes of Luke, Leia, Han, Lando Calrissian, 3PO and R2 to steal the spotlight away from the new generation and hijack the latest chapters in the Skywalker saga, but one quick handshake between Solo and Skywalker before Leia gave the two silly blokes and Chewie a big old squeeze as the rest of the gang watched on after all these years should have been a no-brainer, right? Number 5, a fully planned out story. It was stated by Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy back in 2015 that The Force Awakens creator J.J. Abrams had spoken at length with the director who would be following his first sequel entry, Rian Johnson, with The Last Jedi helmet also doing the same with one-time The Rise of Skywalker director Colin Trevorrow in a bid to create a smooth director transition from one episode to the next. That worked out a treat, didn't it? Rather than producing a set of films that all possess their own distinct identity while simultaneously building towards the same destination, Johnson's bold yet divisive The Last Jedi in particular felt like a film that had next to no interest in sticking on the path Abrams had nudged it onto at the end of episode 7, and Trevorrow ultimately being replaced by Abrams as episode 9 director later down the road soon resulted in The Rise of Skywalker becoming a movie-long mission to stubbornly steer the Skywalker saga ship back in the direction he'd originally intended it to go. While you can see where Disney and Lucasfilm were coming from when putting the pieces in place for this particular trilogy, feeling that these three chosen directors could all collaborate and create something special with their unique voices, the lack of a basic plan as to where the action needed to go across the 3 episodes left the hit-and-miss trilogy often feeling like it was making it up as it went along. Number 4, a bold new look and direction. Rian Johnson's approach to the galaxy far, far away, while somewhat controversial at the time, likely would have helped keep The Rise of Skywalker from delivering one of the flattest and most uninspired conclusions in recent memory. A bit of original and prequel trilogy acknowledgement sprinkled throughout the trilogy was always going to be welcomed with open arms. And in The Last Jedi, Johnson managed to strike a good balance between respectfully saluting the much-loved material that came before it, Luke and Leia's wonderful moment on Crate still ranks as an all-timer, while still finding space to throw out a number of exciting and fresh narrative turns along the way. Episode 8 also contained some of the most unique and captivating cinematography the sequel trilogy had to offer, pumping out truly mesmerizing lightsaber action and perhaps the most stunning ship explosion ever to grace this galaxy. Away from Johnson's mid-trilogy gamble though, much of The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker visually feels like your bog-standard modern sci-fi adventure and possess the sort of predictable narratives fans were hoping the House of Mouse would steer clear of when firing back up this particular hyperdrive. Number 3, more John Williams masterpieces. The great John Williams' influence can be felt throughout many of your absolute favourite cinematic experiences, and it's within the galaxy far, far away that some of the legendary musical figure's finest ever scores regularly invaded and danced into your ears. So with Williams returning to all things Star Wars for every one of the sequel trilogy episodes, fans were understandably expecting some more glorious and instantly iconic themes to be added to the Icons collection. Instead, outside of Rey's rather inspiring theme, much of Williams' work here consists of him replaying the hits, so to speak. Again, there's nothing wrong with lacing the odd familiar element from one of Williams' prior brilliant Skywalker saga scores into the story being told in the sequels, as a way of subtly alluding to the tales that paved the way for Rey, Finn and Poe's journeys. But in general, the sequels contain some of Williams' most forgettable work to date, with the frequent musical standouts coming in the form of the tried and tested main title tune and Binary Sunset. Number 2, more epic space battles. Heading into the latest chapters of Star Wars goodness, you can forgive fans of this particular space opera franchise for rubbing their hands together at the thought of what sort of wars amongst said stars would be thrown into the mix in the modern day. The prequel trilogy had already provided the Skywalker saga with a spectacular collection of space dogfights between bounty hunters and Jedi, separatists dueling with the Republic, and a little lad from Tatooine blasting the Trade Federation to smithereens. The original trilogy saw game-changing Death Star trench runs, and even 2016's Rogue One delivered some genuinely stunning moments of X-Wing action above Scarif. Sadly though, the sequel trilogy just never quite knocked it out of the park when it came to truly epic moments of aerial madness, with everything from the Starkiller base air battle to the overstuffed Exegol space collision often being overshadowed by the far more compelling action going down on the ground. As already noted earlier though, at least The Last Jedi was able to briefly elevate the otherwise lackluster space action with one hell of a Holdo maneuver, but a few more memorable Star Wars wouldn't have gone amiss in this portion of the saga. Number 1, let some of the past stay dead. As has been noted a number of times already over the course of this particularly wishful list, a little bit of nostalgia and a few blasts from the past can work a treat if used sporadically in a sequel flick. Unfortunately for this big screen corner of the galaxy though, what began as a few touching nods to the hugely impactful episodes that paved the way, soon devolved into a full-blown attempt to foolishly revive the past. In the likes of Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren, the sequels already possessed two villainous figures with enough mystique and depth to keep folks engaged for 3 Skywalker saga tales. But why wander into potential-filled uncharted waters when you can simply stick to what you know and undo one of the most impactful deaths of the entire series? Yay! What could have been a hugely engaging exploration of a new terrifying big bad and his motivations, along with Ren perhaps eventually ascending to the level of the most powerful antagonist in the galaxy before ultimately seeing the light late on, was instead squandered in favor of baffling cloning nonsense, and the Emperor once again being conquered in order to bring peace to the galaxy. There's a reason next to no one had Palpatine's puppet on their Snoke fan theory list heading into this trilogy, but that still didn't stop Abrams and co from unleashing unlimited Palpatine in the end. And that's our list. Know of any other things we actually wanted from the Star Wars sequel trilogy? Well, let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you're into this sort of sequel stuff, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic Star Wars articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I have been Padawan Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. Thank you very much for watching this particular video today. Hopefully you check back in sometime soon, but in the meantime, be good to yourself, may the Force be with you, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!